It's mixing time. So today I wanted to walk you through how I mix my own beats. So I have a beat that's basically ready for mixing. It's not finished yet. It's not finished with arrangement and everything like that, but I think it's a good time to start mixing now. Because usually mixing for me is something that I do along me producing the track, because if the kicks and the 808s are just clashing all over the place, I don't find much joy in that. So I usually start mixing throughout me actually producing the beat. So just a quick disclaimer as well. This is my way of mixing. I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that this is the perfect way to mix or the only way to mix. Everybody will find their own sound eventually and their own sort of workflow when it comes to mixing. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Don't take this as the one true mixing advice. This is just me showing you how I personally do it for my sound, for my beats, all of that. So without further ado, let's hop into Ableton and start mixing. Alright, so before we get into the mixing, let me just show you how it sounds completely unmixed. Definitely selecting high quality samples does a lot already. Everybody always talks about it, and it's 1000% true. If you have decent samples, it makes your life a lot easier. So let's just give that a quick listen. Cool, so as you can hear, a quick breakdown of this beat. I have this one little serum melody that just alternates between those two notes. Then I have a piano, chords with a little top melody. Obviously the drums. The 808s. I have down here, I just have like this sort of jungle ambience atmosphere sound. And I have this little clap loop here. And yeah, then other than that, there's also this little flute melody that comes in. And this little guitar here as well, actually. So that's it for all the parts. So when it comes to mixing, usually the first thing that I'll start doing is sidechaining the 808 to the kick. That I feel like makes one of the most dramatic differences in the low end rumbling and stuff like that. So let me just grab my Ableton compressor, activate the sidechain, use my drums, and then find a kick, which is this here. And now when it comes to the 808 sidechaining, it's really up to you how much you want to sidechain, like how much gain reduction you want in the 808s when the kicks hit. Sort of a stylistic preference. Generally speaking, as a rough rule of thumb, I'd say do it enough that you can hear the 808 ducking down, but not like if I show you an extreme here, kind of like that, which would just be wild. That might be a little much. Again, if you're going for that sound, cool. But for me personally, I like it a little more subtle. Something like that sounds alright. And the magic tip with these sorts of things is mixing in general is you have to play around with it. You have to get creative with it. You have to, you know, start understanding what these knobs actually do instead of just copying the same values over. I definitely recommend just playing around with it, honestly. That's probably the biggest thing. You'll get the experience and that'll help you immensely. So another thing when it comes to sidechaining is most people obviously know that you should sidechain your kick and 808 together. What I also like to do is actually sidechain my snare drum to certain parts of the melody, for example. If we listen to these chords, they span a very wide frequency range. They definitely also move in the same space as a bunch of the other instruments as well as the snare drum, which especially with the snare drum, again, I'm doing trap, so I really want really hard hitting kicks and snares. So if I can sidechain stuff to the snare drum to make the snare pop some more, why shouldn't I? Right, so I'll just do the same thing again here, get my compressor, sidechain. This down here is my snare. Now this is very subtle, but you'll hear how the piano kind of ducks down every time the snare hits. With those sorts of high, really reverby, delay sort of sounds, it's not really that the actual sound, like the actual notes are overlapping with the snare drums. So it's not actually going to reduce the volume of the actual hit of this melody, but rather just the reverb tail mostly, right? So if we listen to this, yeah, you can hear how that reverb ducks down. So for this particular beat, that's really all I would do for the sidechaining. So the next thing I would do is just to start EQing stuff. So especially for things like chords, like this piano here, they take up a lot of the low end as well, which you want to reserve the low end basically for the kick and the 808. I'll just grab my EQ8 here. And I'll just cut out the lows. It's definitely missing that full sound now. But again, what I like to do is if I have parts where these chords are playing where there's no 808s, so there's no other element that will clash with those low frequencies, I'll just duplicate the track or automate the EQ to just turn off during those sections. I can even do the same thing with this top melody here. Again, I really like how full it sounds. But you can even see down here that it's taken a lot of low end. So we'll just cut it like that. Maybe even cut a little at the top end to leave some more room for this guitar melody. Plus, vocals are obviously also floating around mostly in that top end range right here. Okay, now let's get to probably the most important step of all. Gainstaging. Gainstaging, 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 gainstaging. You have to gainstage your shit. Now look, I'm very passionate about gainstaging. I feel like setting the correct volume levels for each individual track is basically the most important thing when it comes to mixing, period. I don't care about sidechaining, EQing, whatever, it's the volumes. You need to get your gains right. So essentially when you gainstage your instruments, you are making sure that nothing is too loud, nothing's too quiet. Now, a lot of this stuff is preference, I get that. And you should treat it as such. It's your preference. Whatever you want to have louder, make it louder. And you'll develop an ear for what should actually be louder in the mix. Making sure that you actually set your levels correctly is incredibly important. So let's get to gainstaging. So for gainstaging, really all you need is any type of utility plugin where you can mess with the gain. So in Ableton, it's literally just called utility. Then there's a free plugin called Voxengo Span, which essentially is just allowing you to see very detailed the actual loudness of that input you're giving it. Right, so you can see this little top alternating melody right here is peaking at about, -6 decibels. So now you might ask, okay, but to what decibel level should I set my tracks? Generally, again, this is a lot of preference. Generally speaking, I heard the numbers -12 for drums and 808s and about -18 for melodies. I heard that flowing around a lot. So when it comes to this top melody here, let's make that go down to about -18. Kind of like that. Guitar melody. So this one wants to get a little louder. Kind of like that, maybe. Cool. So let's give that a listen. Okay, so that was sort of the technical mixing side, I'd say. Now, obviously, there's a lot more creative mixing decisions that you could make for exactly how you want that 808 to sound, how much compression you want, stuff like that. So I'll just quickly do that because I usually only do a couple steps anyway. So I'll just put Cymatic's Diablo Light on here. Now, I'm really no fan of like the plugin hype culture, where like somebody releases a plugin and it's meh. And no front to anybody, but I feel like most of that is just kind of, a fancy way of doing just sort of stock plugins, to be honest. So I'm not really a big fan. However, I grabbed Diablo Light and, it actually makes it sound pretty cool. It's really just saturation and like a little bit of distortion. I don't know. It's two knobs and it makes it sound good. So why not use it? That sounds about right. Now remember, put that in front of your gain staging just so you're not completely messing up with everything again. And then just check if your levels... See, because that just raised it by like 6 decibels. Which we do not want. Cool, so now that's there. For my drums, I like to usually put a little bit of fresh air on there. Fresh air is a free plugin as well by Slate Digital. Well, it introduces some fresh air into the mix. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to hear what I'm saying here. But again, free plugin, go and cop it now. It's amazing, especially for vocals and drums and sometimes even the whole master bus. Like, it's really incredible how much life it sort of breathes in that top end. One other thing that I like to do on my drums is actually Neutron 3 Elements. Now, Neutron 3 Elements is a plugin by Isotope, and why I really just like this is they have like this little master assistant, or track assistant rather. So I'll put up front and it's percussion, correct. Cool, just does a little bit of automatic EQ and a little bit of excitement, it looks like, and a little bit of compression here. What I really like adding is actually the transient shaper, and if you put that to sharp and just start raising the attack, like you can see how it's dragging up the attack right here, and it just makes the drums punch a little harder. Punch a lot harder, damn. Now I know many people will actually mix their drums separately. They'll mix the hi-hats and the snare and the kick drums. Usually I'll get to that as well once the track is actually finished. Like, I'll just duplicate this drum track 2 more times. Then I have one just for the kicks, one just for the snares, and one just for the hi-hats, and I'll just mute all the other like drum sounds with the others, and then just do a little more fine-tuning. But right now I'm just after like some quick mix, and usually this works fine. I've done plenty of mixes and plenty of beats exactly this way, and they all sound decent. Alright, so that was how I go about my mixing. Again, this is nowhere near perfect, this is nowhere near a one-size-fits-all, this is just how I do it. I thought I'd just give you some inspiration on maybe what things to sort of take a look at, and then obviously you just go ahead and make your own decisions on how you actually want to deal with that. So with all of that being said, thank you guys for watching. I hope that I was able to provide some amount of value to you here, that you learned at least something. If you have any other questions on the plugins that I use, or you know, any other thing, just like write a comment or shoot me a DM or anything like that. I would be happy to, you know, start a conversation with you all about mixing and all that nerdy stuff. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and yeah, check me out on Instagram for some more behind the scenes stuff, and leave a like and subscribe on this YouTube channel if you want to see more stuff like this. Peace.